talking about recovery, you did mention that connection is the key.
Mhm.
But recovery is not always linear. Were there relapses along the way? And if so, what did they actually teach you about yourself?
Yeah, so there was relapses along the way. I've been 13 years sober from alcohol, and I share that very proudly. So my recovery date is May 2nd of 2013, and so in May of this year, I celebrated 13 years of sobriety from alcohol. But I like to be very specific because during the pandemic, I discovered drugs again. And I told myself that I had about 6 years of sobriety, and in the program that I work, substances other than alcohol are also not that means you're not spiritually fit in yourself. Like, um, you're seeking support, you're seeking relief outside of yourself in a substance, and that can be anything. That can be THC, that can be, ice cream, that can be, unhealthy relationships with other people. And so I live in California, and it's legal to use cannabis and THC. And so my children were 6 and 4 and 18 months, and I was homeschooling them, and my husband was working out of the home full time as an essential worker. And I had never been more miserable in my entire life. And I thought, well, if ever there was a time to check out, the world is checked out. I feel alone. I can't meet in my groups anymore. Nobody was meeting in person. It's not the same online connection, as it is in person. And so I used that as an excuse to explore drugs. And I ended up needing a procedure done. And again, they prescribed me pain medication. And I found that if I mixed pain medication with THC, that again was this combination that I was trying to seek the same sensation as drinking. I was always trying to look for that, even on the packages of gummies or things that I would get.
Mhm.
I saw the things that said mimics the sensation of drinking, and that was the one that I picked every single time. And I was like, okay, but if I take two, okay, but if I take three, okay, but if I take four, and it was never right. It was never enough again. And I ended up overdosing on what's called tincture, which you're supposed to take a drop or whatever. And I think I took five. And again, I learned the hard way, mixing with prescription pills, that I'm an addict, and so I can become addicted to anything. And so I actually celebrate a clean date as well, which is August 6th, 2022. And I share this because, like you said, recovery is not linear. And I had a lot of shame in my relapse. There are some people in my program that would argue that my sobriety date would start over. Um, and that, sure, that can be argued. But I do think there's something valuable in, you have to come to a realization in your own recovery that says, why do I keep seeking something else? What is it that I'm running away from? What is it that I'm scared of? And I had to find that in myself. And for me, it was my motherhood. I was trying to run away from motherhood. I thought that I was going to be the best mom in the whole world. And this was, I got sober. Um, I have all the ingredients, right? I have a wonderful life and wonderful children, and they're healthy. So shouldn't I be the best mom? And it turns out all of my mental illness, my neurodiversity, my ADHD, my substance abuse, is not conducive with being a mom. Because if I get overwhelmed, if I get upset, I go from zero to a million. And I'm not on anything. I'm not on a substance that, any drugs or alcohol, and I can't use any of those as a coping tool anymore. And so I have to just be in it, which to me, which sounds crazy, but it's the hardest thing I've ever done, is to be a mom. And I was thinking this was going to be my best thing. This was going to be the where I shine. So what I decided to write all my books about is the fact that like you can be in active recovery, you can be in active addiction, and what it looks like to normalize the conversation around the imperfect mom. Because that's where I exist. I don't do it great, but I do it again with my whole heart in the way that I try and do everything. And my kids see that it's like it's flawed still, right? But then that's sort of the name of this whole game, right? Aren't we allowed to be messy and flawed and imperfect? And so that's what I'm showing them. Um, and I that's where it's led me to. And I'm so grateful for that. So it's taken a lot of forgiveness and grace to recognize, like, I don't have, according to who? I have to be the perfect mom according to who? According to what? My children know that they're loved and they know that they're safe. Um, but it's okay. Like, it's okay if I'm not, if I felt like I wasn't enough in that. This is just how I work that out in real time is by writing books about it.
And talking about relapses, which I think is something which we do not talk about much, and there should be a lot of noise around it, because it's just not that if you are addicted, go to a rehab or get a therapy and then
Right.
you come out sober. There are setbacks. They're an important part of your journey as well. You won't get it right the first time. You won't get it right the second time, maybe not the third time. But then if you are consistent, you will definitely
Totally.
battle it out.
I like to say that in like I tried to get sober in it before my actual sobriety date, right? And tried to get sober in quotes, meaning like I tried halfway and I went back in, I went back out. I wasn't ready to be all done. And I see that a lot. And people do that a lot. The woman that I met with before, again, she said, I'm going on 2 years now and I'm just not ready. I'm not ready yet. There's a lot of that. There's a lot of that back and forth. But I like to say that if there is an opportunity for you to explore trying a version of recovery, and that means like all like not drinking a little bit, um, you will start to see yourself in a way that is completely different than how you've been. That version of yourself as a person who's using and drinking isn't meant to make these decisions, right? So, like, give
Absolutely.
yourself the opportunity to introduce yourself to your sober self and see what that person looks like 30 days in. And if you can do that and you can just sort of turn the light on for a second, that's I've seen that be the difference in people where it's like, oh wait, I maybe I don't want to go back to that before, but you have to give yourself that opportunity. Um, and sometimes it just looks like a day. And like I said in the beginning, I didn't feel great. I felt horrible. I felt depressed. I felt sad because my whole body had shut down. I was used to drinking, like I said, a handle of vodka every other day. So I was anxious, I was sweaty, I was having seizures. Um, and if I was to make the decision in that moment, I would say, of course, I'm going to go back to drinking. This feels horrible. Why would I do that? But you have to give yourself a chance. And that's where I feel like, of course, rehab is wonderful because you have that safe space to do that. I didn't do rehab. I definitely should have done a medical detox, and I highly recommend that people that are drinking that amount do a medical detox because it's very dangerous. Um, but I didn't do rehab, and I just did it in the way of asking for help for what's available within your community for free. That costs nothing, and that was a possibility. And you'll start to get introduced to yourself, and the more time that passes, the more amazed you'll be able to see like who you are and what you're capable of without drinking, without alcohol, without drugs.
Absolutely. And we just spoke about relapses, which a lot of people don't realize and they don't understand. that setbacks happen, and
Yeah.
it is okay, right? We
Yeah,
still have to hold
absolutely.
them strong. What do you wish more people understood about how difficult and courageous the process of recovery can be?
Yeah. I I would have said, before that I've had to look at and take a whole new perspective on recovery as a whole as I've gone through the journey of it. It's very different to sit here 13 years sober, to go to any event, right? I can go to any event, I can do anything and be completely comfortable being around alcohol. That was not true in my first year. I remember I went to this concert series my first weekend of sobriety, and I was so miserable. I've never been so miserable because it was a drinking festival. It was in Napa, which is in wine country. And I thought, if this is what sobriety is, like, this is terrible. But really, what I had done is I had set myself up to be miserable in that week, to just like punish myself and be like, okay, well, life's just going to suck now because I'm not going to have any fun. I can't do anything. That was just me testing the limits, right? And like wanting myself to fail. Like I was like, oh, I hope something horrible happens so then I can drink again, which sounds insane, but this is where you go. And so I share this because a lot of times people will do that to themselves, right? They'll sabotage and they'll say, like, well, I mean, everything's already going to hell, so it doesn't matter. That's the mentality I got to in the pandemic. Was I was like, well, I really do think the world is ending. So shouldn't I be high? Like, shouldn't we all be high? I mean, that's not funny, but I genuinely was like, no, it's the end of the world. And so you can convince yourself of anything. But that's where that meant that I was disconnected. I was feeling emotionally disconnected from my recovery. And so as soon as I got back into it and I put that effort back into all of the good things, which means stop being selfish, do something for another person, um, step outside of yourself in your small bubble and give back, I felt better, right? I didn't feel like I wanted to reach for something else. I was like, oh, this feels better. Okay. Okay. So today I can do that. And then it's another day and it's another day. But you absolutely, that relapse is part of it. The key is, though, is you have to keep trying again.
Hmm.
Um,
Absolutely.
and that's the part that breaks my heart is I know so many people that relapse is part of it, and drinking especially. Um, and then they don't make it back. They don't make it back to sobriety. Because the thing about the addiction and the disease is that it's actually moving in a line that goes up, and your addiction is going to meet you exactly not where you left off, but as if it's doing push-ups while you're being sober. And so if you collide with that, it's like an explosion. I used to be able to drink 10 shots in an hour, and like I know that's just waiting for me, right? That little demon is there saying, "Okay, but if you had a drink, you would have 10 drinks." And that's true. Except my body can't handle 10 drinks. I can't even have NyQuil because I would be sick. Um, and this is where the danger lies, right? In that. And so rationally, I can say that to you right now, but come to me on a bad day. And it's like, that sounds like a good idea. And those are the things that, like, just know that it's not easy. It isn't easy. It's not something that just happens. But it is 1,000,000% possible. And like, I'm living proof that it is possible.
And an important topic that we should be considering as we are discussing addiction is relationship and healing. So, how did addiction impact your relationship with the people closest to you, and how did it influence your sense of identity during that time?
Yeah, so here's the other piece about it is that I thought that my best version of myself was when I was drinking, genuinely. And that's the other confusing part about addiction is you think you are showing up as your best self. I thought that I was in the middle of the dance floor and everybody was watching me be amazing. That's not what they were watching. They were watching me flailing, and suffering is what was actually happening. And so this version of myself that's sober, I remember like saying to my husband when I was, first getting sober, and I just said, like, I don't think you're going to love me like as a sober person. Like, how boring, how terrible. Like, I'm so, like, we're going to go to like work functions and like I can't toast with everybody. Isn't that so embarrassing for you? And he's like, hun, like, I have to tell you, like, no, you, like, being fully conscious and aware of what you're doing. This is who I love. I don't love the version of you that you become when you drink. It's not you. You're not there. And you like look at pictures of yourself and your lights just aren't on. There's a blank look in your eye. And so everybody in my life has gotten to grow with me as I've changed in recovery. And then I've lost a lot of people along the way. And that was the hardest pill to swallow, is that the people I surrounded myself with in my early college drinking were the people that drank like me, and the ones that made me feel normal. And a lot of them have found recovery along the way. I've had like 3 roommates who have actually found sobriety, like college roommates are now sober, which is amazing. But it gives you an idea that we seek each other out because we're normalizing. Oh, how much do you drink a night? Oh, 2 bottles? Great. Well, I'll take your 2 bottles and I'll raise you another one. And so those people have sort of fallen off along the way. And the real relationships are the ones with people that alcohol is not at the center of their life. The things that I hold to be dear are at the center: love, connection, community, family. And so it's only made my relationship with every single person in my life stronger. And the greatest thing is that I can be someone's in case of emergency person, which sounds silly, but like there was a time where you couldn't call me. I had a roommate call me and she just gotten into a serious car accident and she was asking me to pick her up from the hospital. And I couldn't because I was too drunk. And like to not be that person for someone. And now it's like, anybody having a baby, I can drive you at any moment of the day. But it's such a good feeling to know that I can be counted on. And I pride myself in that, which is why I don't like cancel plans. I don't change things unless it's kid related. And then, that's always something. But it's a point of pride with me now because I'm like, I want to be dependable and trustworthy. And that's the person I want to show up for with my friends and family. And it feels really good because I get it back in return. That vulnerability that I'm giving them, they give it back to me, and then our relationships just get stronger.
So, talking about relationship, many think sobriety automatically fixes everything. In your experience, did becoming sober immediately repair your relationship, or was earning back trust a separate part of the recovery journey?
Oh yeah. I mean, it's it there's part of the program that I practice that it's like sometimes quickly, sometimes slowly. Like there's promises that we're promised if we do this work and we do this recovery work. And I remember 30 days in, I got pregnant with my daughter, and that's all I ever wanted was to become a mom. And so I just remember like I fell to my knees, like, thank you, God, like this is all I've ever wanted. And then joke's on me because turns out motherhood is as hard as addiction recovery. So I was like, okay, well, thanks for the gift. I'm very grateful. But also, this isn't just a free a free gift. It comes with growth and all the things. And so, yeah, I had to learn that the hard way, and that absolutely. So again, that was that fix, right? And then turns out it was actually a lot harder than I anticipated. And that's the journey of recovery and what it's been, and all the lessons that I've had to learn along the way. I have to learn them like by getting them beaten over the head with myself, right? Like, I mean, I'll tell you again, don't do anything halfway. So I was like, okay, well, what if I just become obsessed with like physical fitness and I'll just be super healthy, and that'll be good for my mind. Okay, well, I did like Spartans, which are races that are very intensive, and marathons. And I was like, oh, turns out I can do this too much and I can be like too consumed by it to the point that I'm neglecting like my family and friends. And I'm like, why do I need to keep learning this? I just have to keep learning it over and over. And so, no, there is no like easy solution. And even when you're in it, you still find ways to get it wrong sometimes. And so, the only thing that I know to be true in recovery is that everything, like I can't have anything in my life if I don't have sobriety. So I know for a fact that my career would go away. My relationship with my husband would go away because that trust would be gone. I would have broken that trust. And my relationship with my children wouldn't exist because who I'm presenting to them isn't trustworthy. Also, how confusing and scary for them to see a drunk or a high or a, you know, that version of a mom they've never seen like that. That thought alone is terrifying. And so while that is completely possible, and I did do it in the pandemic, luckily they were young, but those are thoughts in my head all the time of like reminders like that that's what's available to me if I want to explore it more. I don't need to explore it anymore. I know nothing will possibly get better in my life as a result of drinking or using again. I know that for sure. Like, I don't know anything else, but I know that for sure.
And you've shared that recovery wasn't just about giving up alcohol.
Mm.
It became a journey of rediscovering who you are, and building a life you genuinely love. So, in what ways has sobriety transformed you beyond simply no longer drinking?
Yeah. So I, like I said, like before, I'm continually getting reintroduced to myself. The person that was so lonely and sad and insecure as my childhood self or as myself in my 20s, as a result of my trauma. And I, this version of me that is sober and is clean, I'm able to take life on life's terms, meaning it isn't perfect. There's things that happen, and yet I can accept that for what it is because I know that I'm showing up as the person that is the best, strongest version of myself, and that can also be imperfect. That can look not like I thought it was going to look, right? And I'm ever being introduced to that person. Um, and I'm constantly wanting more. Like I'm wanting more for myself. And I allowed my world to be so small in addiction. I allowed my dreams to be small. I mean, at one point, I even was like, well, I'll just give up having children because I can't stop drinking. I won't be a writer because I can't make it past 6 p.m. Without passing out. And that's when I write, is at night. And I was just willing to give it all up. I won't be friends with you because you're mad at me because I canceled plans on you. Fine, we won't be friends anymore. And again, my world just got smaller and smaller and smaller. And now this world that I live in is like, it's so big in the best way. I literally, the people that I've met along the way and like the authors that I've met, the podcasters I've talked to, the people, I mean, the strangers that I meet on the street that, I talk to about, I'm one of those oversharers in like Safeway. They like want to talk to me about anything. I'll start talking about sobriety and then somehow they'll start talking about sobriety. Um, because I love to have my world be big and full, because the more that I'm connecting with other people, the more they help me stay sober, the more hopefully I help them, or they hear something, they hear a piece of my story that resonates with them that reminds them of their sister who's struggling, or, they feel less alone. And I'm like, truly, there is no greater high drunk sensation than that feeling of somebody saying, like, I feel seen by something you've written, by something you've said. I feel less alone. And that I just get that in spades as a writer. And as I share my story, and like, I don't ever want that to go away. I just want it to get bigger.
And talking about writing, you have mentioned about finding joy, strengths you never knew you had, and using writing as a way of process to heal, to connect with others. What parts of yourself did you rediscover during the recovery? And if you could shed some light on what you have been writing, what you have published, and what you are working on.
Yeah, so writing was the thing. I always share that writing is my last like safe form of escapism. Writing and running, although as I shared earlier, I took running too far. So writing is really the last thing that I can do that's actually truly still good for me. And I don't take it to I'll take it to a dark place, right? Like I'll write about my traumas and I'll write about things that I need to heal from. But I find it so profoundly healing to work it out by writing about it. And it's not only because other people will come back and say they share that experience, or the way that I was able to write addiction helped them understand. I had a woman come to me and say, like, she was in her early 20s and her mom died from the disease of alcoholism. And she's like, I never forgave her. She ruined my childhood and she ruined my life. But I read your book, Between the Devil and the Deep Blue Sea, and I feel like I could start to open my mind to the idea that she was suffering, because I thought I was the only one that was suffering. And in my mind, that there isn't anything more beautiful than that, because I have been able to shed light on something that she couldn't articulate. And if I have the words for it, isn't that a gift? And shouldn't I share that? And so in my writing, that's what I try and do, is I try and share the hardest, darkest pieces that I've tried to work through. Um, Between the Devil and the Deep Blue Sea is written about that scary moment, where you want to get off the ride of drinking and you can't. And it's about a mom who is trying to get off the ride and she can't, and what that looks like, and the fear and the inadequacy, and then the anger and resentment, the comparison. That's what that book is about. And then my second book, Both Can Be True, is about two sisters, one of which has long-term recovery. And Frankie, ends up relapsing with drugs in a very similar manner to me. And I wanted to show, again, that recovery is not linear and it doesn't look like a straight line. And then there's another sister, and they've had sort of a fraught relationship because of childhood trauma, and a woman in their community goes missing and they're sort of pulled back together and they have to sort of rehash things that they've been through, and they have to help each other to work it out, and come together. And in that, I'm working through, the other sister has a child with neurodivergence, with autism, and I wanted to sort of explore what it looks like to parent children that are not neurotypical, that were children basically just like me, and sort of what that looks like in this day and age, because it's such a common experience at this point. I think it's like 1 in 4 have some sort of mental illness, or neurodiversity, whatever it looks like. And when you're parenting on top of that, that's a hard road that's often not explored in fiction. And so, on top of addiction, on top of all of those things, I try and find ways to weave in those other pieces to normalize the conversation, to make people feel less alone.
And this definitely aids your healing and transformation process as well, right?
Yeah. Yes,
Yeah.
it's the thing that I found to be the most healing, besides connecting with other people. Um, some people, go out in nature and they walk and they feel closer to, to nature that way or whatever. If I could sit and write about an experience, I'll find a way to work through it in real time, and put it in a way that I hope resonates with other people.
I couldn't agree more. So, when we are talking about sobriety, I think maintaining your sobriety should also be an integral part of the discussion. So, now what practices, rituals, or habits help you stay grounded in sobriety today?
Yeah, I have to stay a part of my 12-step program. So I do that and I have a sponsor and I work with other women. I sponsor other women as well. And that's really beneficial for me, to kind of walk them through various stages of their recovery journey. Staying connected to other people that aren't in a program, but that need help or that are struggling, or that just want to talk about the fears that they have as it relates to their drinking. This helps me enormously. It brings me right back to the early days of that confusion, convincing yourself that this is totally fine, this isn't a problem, this is all the thing. If I hear that in another person, I'm reminded, because I'm 13 years out on the on this side of it right now, but I need to be brought back in sometime to say like, "Oh, yep, I remember that." No, thank you. I don't need to go back to that. And so being with another person and definitely staying connected in my community is super helpful. Feeling like a part of, we talked about the dances and everything. What I realized is that I need to feel like I'm among others and I'm not on the outside. And if I'm isolating and putting myself on the outside, that is a recipe for disaster for me, because that means I don't want people checking in on me and I need people checking in on me, because when I'm left to my own devices, that's when I get in trouble. So just having people hold me accountable, and having that is really helpful, because it keeps me honest, it keeps me sober, and it keeps me healthy and doing what I need to do.
And you are helping so many who are battling addiction. And as you mentioned, that you love sharing, you love talking about sobriety. So, how do you draw boundaries?
Yeah, how do I boundaries? Yeah, one of the boundaries I had to draw was it's really helpful for me to do fiction as opposed to like memoir or nonfiction, because I'm able to separate like the truth from what's real and what's not real. I can share the pieces that are truthful, but I also get to protect the pieces that are just for me, that are just for my family, that are, about my daughter's experience that's not mine to share. And I think that's a really important piece, is being able to allow that to happen. So yeah, so doing that is really important. Also knowing like who the safe people are. A trauma response is oversharing. And when I was new in recovery, I thought I sort of had to like dump all of the information in order to say like, oh, this is why this happened. This is how I became an alcoholic. And that's not the case. There is no like test you take that it's like, oh yes, you get your seat here because you check off these boxes. It's a self-diagnosis, which is hard, right? Because you're going to try and convince yourself that you don't have it. But I very much needed that ability to be able to do that and be able to say like, I need, because when you come in, you have no healthy boundaries whatsoever. Everything has been blurred because there's nothing you wouldn't do to get access to that drink or substance. And so it's a completely different way of living. And you have to learn and check yourself. And sometimes that, again, like everything else, sometimes that looks imperfect and that looks like it's not linear.
And talking about that reminds me of, I think you have been very public about your ADHD diagnosis.
Mhm.
And can you shed some light on that?
Yeah, so I think one of the things that I learned with that is, it has to do with the emotional regulation piece. And also everything about motherhood, our role, if we're talking, strictly stereotypically, is to like run a household, let's say. I mean, obviously, hopefully you have a partner that takes 50-50 and all that stuff, but the majority of it is the mental load of motherhood. And that looks like, I know that tomorrow there's 5 different things that we have on our calendar. It's a big jigsaw puzzle, and it's a moving piece of who can be where and do what, and what do I need to pack for this, and what do we have to do for that. So I reached a point recently where it all sort of imploded. And I was like, why is it so hard for me to do these things? And recognizing that it's a lot, right? I have 3 children, so that's a lot. I have a career. I do have a very supportive partner. We have a house full of pets. It's hard anyways. But I was like, why am I getting so overwhelmed and so overstimulated still? And I had to look at it and basically, again, ask for help and say, could this be something else? And based on my history, it's really interesting. It's challenging for women, especially in their 40s, to get a proper diagnosis of ADHD because, especially if you have a history of substance abuse, and you have masking behaviors, which I did, which was the presenting like everything was fine. um, it's going to look like not the typical what you think of when you think of ADHD, which what I grew up with, what it was like hyperactivity and you're bouncing off the walls. Um, and that's not what my reality was. It's, I will forget to do these things. I will lose this. My house is never clean. It cannot be clean. And then I feel like a failure and overwhelmed on top of that. And that's what it was presenting like. And so getting that diagnosis for me and recognizing why those things have been so hard and how much I've had to mask and suffer, really. Um, I've had to like give myself some grace because I recognize like, oh, this is actually just how my brain works. It tells me something that may or may not be true, and I have to analyze it. And that works really well to be a writer. It works really well to be a creative person. I wouldn't change that for the world. But it doesn't work really well when I have 3 kids and they're all saying something at the same time. And one of them's crying and one of them's asking for food and the other one just fell down. And I feel like I want to run away and never come back. And that's my brain being completely overstimulated. And my response is to shut down or run away. And so that's what it was looking like. And it was different for a lot of people, but to like start to have a conversation around that. Also the intrusive thoughts and the OCD from when I was younger, that was the beginning of that. And I had to look at that and say like, well, that didn't really go away. Intrusive thoughts changed into something else. It could look like postpartum depression, which it did for me. Fear and worry, anxiety as it relates to the safety of your kids. And so it manifests into other things until you actually look at it and solve it. It's the same thing with addiction. And I will jump over hurdles to avoid it, to not do it, to not deal with it. And sooner or later, like everywhere you go, there you are. So I had to look at it, and I'm so glad I did.
And that brings us to the last section of the podcast where we do a bit of a reflection. Looking back at your journey, what is that one thing you would like to let go of completely? And one lesson or quality from this journey that you would never want to lose?
Yeah. The one thing I want to let go of, and again, this is the one that I have to keep learning over and over again, is the idea that it's never enough. Meaning like, I think the thing that's really hard in recovery is it's an everyday experience. So, like, I don't get to say, like, I have recovery forever. It's a daily choice and a daily struggle. And so, in learning that, I've had to learn that that has to be true for everything that I do. That can look like, my benchmark of what I think a good mom is, or what I think a best-selling author is, and um, I keep making a bar for myself that's impossible, and also is meaningless, like doesn't actually mean something, but I make it so it's always just out of reach. Uh, and again, it's not good enough. I'm not enough, which is, the childhood version of myself that's talking there. And I wish that I could reach a place of acceptance and gratitude for where I am. And there's a lot of days, especially in recovery, that we practice this, and I absolutely can. And I show up on those days and I'm like, I'm just here, I'm in the moment. I'm so lucky to have what I have. And that's a lot of the time. But if I could, like, wave a magic wand, and on those days where I feel like, why is it not this? Why don't I have this? Or comparison is the thief of joy. I I wish that I could turn that part off and just say, just be, and just know that you're enough. Um, and that's the seeking part of being an addict and being an alcoholic. You're always looking for the next thing. But we just need to be here in the now. So that would be mine. Um, the other one is something that I wouldn't give up for anything. Is that the question?
Yes.
Um, yeah, I mean, something that I wouldn't give up for anything, right back to the beginning of what we said, is who am I? And it's that I wouldn't give up my recovery for anything. I used to think that, I remember early on in sobriety, sitting in meetings, listening to people talk and thinking, I bet you one day they're going to have like a pill that I can just take and then I can drink like everyone else. And I can't wait for that because that'll just happen. They make pills for everything. So I'll just wait for that. And I can do this, whatever in between, and I'll survive it. And I won't, but I can't wait to be able to have a glass of wine. And I thought like that for a long time. And now, I like, if somebody could wave a magic wand and say, you're free from the obsession of, drinking. If you drink again, you could take this pill. You would never be an addict. You would never be an alcoholic. Um, I would never go back. Like, I wouldn't change it. Truly. I wouldn't take the pill. I would to drink again. I wouldn't, because that version of myself isn't this version. And so I'm very serious and genuine when I say, like, if I don't have my recovery, and my sobriety, I don't have anything good. And I think that, like I said, part of my who I am and what I'm meant to leave in this world is to offer hope to other people. And so if I didn't have my addictions and I didn't have my sobriety, to share, then it feels like a purpose for me. And so I wouldn't change it. I wouldn't give away my sobriety to anyone. And so it's the thing that I hold closest to me.
And that brings us to the last question. What message of hope would you like to leave with our listeners who are battling addiction, or they are secretly battling addiction?
You know, just that I see you. I I know what it feels like to profoundly suffer, in silence, to pretend, to lie. Um, and it's such a lonely feeling. And it's so empty, and I'm not I'm not any better than you. I am you. I was you. Um, but I have to tell you that there was a moment in my life where I was like, recovery will never happen for me. I am too, I am too far gone. And also I don't want to stop. I can't stop. So every thought that you've had, I've had. We might not have done the same drugs. We might not have drank the same way, but the feeling that we had is identical. I bet you more than anything. And the thing that I have now, the peace and the serenity of it is such a much more powerful thing than drugs or alcohol ever falsely gave me. And that's true for everyone. That's available to anyone. And I wish it for you too, truly. And you don't have to do it by yourself. I'm only here because of the women and the people that have walked before me and held out their hand to say that you can, we can walk this path together. You don't have to do it alone. So I truly, truly mean that. And you can recover.
Thank you so much, Jessica. And thank you for being so open, for sharing your stories, and being a source of inspiration to so many who would be listening to this podcast. I know the journey to sobriety is not easy, but then if you keep on making those attempts, you can definitely overcome addiction.
Yep. And
You
yeah,
just have to be consistent.
absolutely. It is possible. Recovery is possible. Don't be afraid to ask for help.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Jessica, once again. And hope to meet you again on
Yes.
another episode.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here and I appreciate it.
To stay connected, visit our website and follow Healthy Aligned Living on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube for more conversations, insights, and updates. If you would like to reach out, you can contact us by phone at 1-866-213-0518 or email us at info@healthyalignedliving.com. And if this episode resonated with you, please share it with someone who might benefit from it as well.